The heavy steel gates of the state penitentiary were the only thing standing between me and the people who put me here. My own flesh and blood. 3 years of staring at damp concrete walls were finally over. I wasn't just walking out a free woman. I was walking out with the match that would burn their stolen empire to the ground. They thought they buried me, but they forgot I was a seed. My parents framed me and sent me to prison for 3 years for a lie I never told. They blamed me for the car accident that caused my sister-in-law to lose her baby, something I never intended to happen. They thought this broken woman would stay silent, powerless, and forgotten beneath the stairs. But they had no idea what was coming. I can still hear my mother's voice in the courtroom, cold as ice, saying, "A life for a life." My father sat beside her, whispering that I needed to disappear for the good of the family. My younger brother smiled from the witness stand, saying I owed it to her. Every word was calculated, every tear was rehearsed. They painted me as the monster who destroyed their future grandchild, all to take what was rightfully mine. I refused all visitors during those 3 years. I didn't want to see their faces. I didn't want to hear another lie. The damp walls of the prison in Washington became my calendar. With a broken fingernail, I scratched line after line into the concrete. In total, 1,095 marks. Tomorrow would be the last one. Tomorrow, I would leave. The air in here smells of rust, regret, and waiting. But tomorrow the gates open and everything changes. Before I tell you how it all started and how it ends, leave a comment below telling me where you are watching from. I want to know who is listening to a woman's story about family betrayal and the price of truth. Tell me about the moment someone you trusted stabbed you in the back. We are all here for the same reason. Some wounds never heal, and some debts are paid in full. The day I was released would be the day every lie started to bite the hand that created it. The last days at the Women's Correctional Facility in Washington, on the outskirts of Seattle, dragged on endlessly. I sat on the cold metal bunk, the thin mattress worn down in spots from years of use. With the jagged edge of a fingernail, I scratched another mark into the damp concrete behind the bed. Those marks were my only calendar, straight and emotionless. 1,095 lines. Tomorrow would be the last one. Memories came without warning, without mercy. I am Morgan Reed, the woman who built Reed Cloud Systems from absolute zero. It all started in my parents' garage in Bellevue, with a secondhand laptop and an idea for secure cloud storage aimed at small businesses. I worked nonstop, skipping college parties, turning down weekend trips that friends begged me to go on. At 25, I landed my first paying client. At 33, the company was publicly traded, valued at $90 million. I held the majority of the shares, part of it from a trust my grandfather had created that I couldn't touch until I was of age, but the vast majority earned through my own sweat and tears. I signed every major contract, represented the brand in every meeting with investors. Chase, my younger brother, 4 years my junior, never accepted this reality. He was smart, charismatic, but impatient. Growing up, he was the one our parents coddled because he was the son, the true heir to the Reed name. They always spoke as if the company would eventually be his, that I was just holding the fort for him. I heard those whispers behind closed doors, saw the look of disappointment at family breakfasts when my father looked at me, wishing I had been born a man. It's funny how family can be your biggest cheerleader until you outshine the one they actually bet on. That's when the cheering stops and the plotting begins. Chase never said anything, but I felt his silent resentment every time I announced record growth. Every time a local tech magazine published a feature calling me the rising entrepreneur of Seattle, he smiled, clapped, but the smile never reached his eyes. Then Harper entered his life. She was beautiful, sharp, and knew exactly what she wanted. They married quickly after she got pregnant. My mother was radiant. Finally, a grandson to continue the family line. She called me, her voice animated, asking me to take Harper to her prenatal appointment for her. I was busy with a board meeting, but I agreed, like always. It was the duty of the eldest daughter of the Reed family. That day, the rain fell hard, the kind of relentless Seattle downpour that lasts for hours on the I-5. I was driving the company Tesla, with Harper in the passenger seat, her hand on her belly. At first, the conversation was light. Baby names, ideas for the nursery. Then it shifted to business. Harper didn't ask about the baby. She asked about the stocks. Chase mentioned wanting to withdraw some capital for a side investment. She asked what I thought. I told her to stay calm. We were in the middle of expanding server infrastructure. Withdrawing funds now would tank the stock price and hurt all shareholders, including Mom and Dad's retirement accounts. Harper smiled with disdain. She said I always put the company before family. She said Chase was my brother and he deserved a bigger cut. The argument escalated from there. I tried to keep the car steady, but she wouldn't stop. She accused me of being selfish, of holding on to power just to prove something to our parents. Her voice was rising, hands gesturing frantically. In the heat of the moment, Harper suddenly yanked the steering wheel hard. The car swerved instantly, tires sliding on the wet pavement, scraping against the guardrail with a sickening screech. The airbags deployed, the windshield shattered. I slammed on the brakes, stopping in the middle of traffic, horns blaring all around us. I turned to her, heart racing, asking if she was okay. Harper clutched her belly, her face pale. The ambulance arrived quickly. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed she had lost the baby. I sat stunned in the hallway, in shock. But what came next turned that shock into a nightmare. Harper told the police that I deliberately jerked the steering wheel in a rage over the money dispute. Chase stood beside her, holding her hand, looking at me with a mix of sorrow and determination. My parents rushed to the hospital. My mother hugged Harper, sobbing, and then turned to me with a coldness in her voice I had never heard before. My father said nothing, only nodded when the police asked about old family tensions. The dashcam footage mysteriously disappeared. Later, recovery attempts showed the files had been completely wiped without a trace. My personal and company accounts were frozen by an emergency order Chase filed, claiming risk of asset dissipation due to mental instability. Without access to funds, I couldn't hire a private attorney. I was assigned a young public defender, overwhelmed with cases, who barely reviewed my file before the trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks in the King County Superior Court. My parents took the stand as key witnesses. My mother, weeping, said she was always frightened by my temper, even when I was young. My father added that I controlled the company with too much rigidity and never gave Chase a real chance. Harper, in a wheelchair, wept as she described the moment she felt the car deliberately lurch toward the guardrail. Chase held her hand, his voice breaking, saying he was sure I pulled the wheel. Then, with eerie calm, he narrated the events exactly as they happened, but flipped the roles. My public defender stumbled against the polished testimonies of the family. The jury looked at me with suspicion. A successful businesswoman, suddenly unstable. The judge sentenced me to 3 years for vehicular manslaughter due to recklessness, plus a no-contact order with the company during my incarceration. When the gavel banged, I didn't cry. I only felt a cold emptiness spread through me. Helplessness. That was all that remained. 3 years. 3 years for everything I built to be destroyed from the inside out. You never really know people until you see what they're willing to do for a piece of the pie. My family didn't just want the pie. They wanted to bake me into it. The dry click of heels and the heavier thud of men's shoes echoed down the prison corridor. I set aside the worn book I was pretending to read and waited. The guard's voice came over the intercom. Final visit approved. They entered the visitation room like a rehearsed ensemble cast. My parents, Chase, and Harper. My mother chose a navy blue dress with her favorite pearl necklace. My father wore the charcoal suit reserved for board meetings. Chase's tie was perfectly knotted, hair styled as if he were heading to a photo shoot afterward. Harper carried a small bouquet of lilies, her face carefully arranged in sadness. I picked up the receiver on my side of the glass. My father spoke first, leaning in with the authoritative tone he used in contract negotiations. He said the documents were ready. He said I needed to transfer the majority shares to Chase so they could stabilize everything. He claimed the company was bleeding money with me gone. My mother's voice came next, softer but no less calculated. She said it was the only way to protect what Grandpa built. She said the investors were nervous, and a signature would save jobs, save the legacy. Chase took the phone, his eyes meeting mine with the same intensity he showed on the witness stand. He told me to think about the big picture, sister. He said I always claimed the legacy of Reed Cloud Systems was about more than any single person. Harper rested her free hand on the glass. She said, after all, I owed this to the family. I gripped the receiver but said nothing. Then the door on their side opened again. Mason Reed entered, my youngest brother, 25 years old. He was the former CFO I had let go 18 months before my arrest for small discrepancies in quarterly reports. He wore a well-cut gray suit, hair short, looking more like a young executive than someone who had been job hunting for years. He sat beside Chase, not saying a word to me at first. When he took the phone, his tone was even, almost indifferent. He said family isn't always about who is right or wrong. Sometimes it's about who manages to survive. His eyes darted away from mine as he said that. I looked at their faces. Parents who taught me ambition, a brother who grew up in my shadow, a sister-in-law who married into the family 5 years ago and solidified a wall against me. Survival. That word hung in the air like smoke. They thought survival meant eating the weak. They didn't realize survival sometimes means playing dead until the predator turns its back. I told them clearly into the receiver, I'm not signing. Nothing. Consider this goodbye. My father's expression turned to stone. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Chase gripped the phone tight. Mason simply placed the receiver back on the hook, reactionless. I stood up and walked away. Behind me, my mother's voice rose through the glass, shouting that I was throwing away everything we worked for. The next morning, the familiar gray Seattle sky and a light drizzle greeted me. The prison gates opened right on schedule. Out there, a small crowd of reporters waited. Tech journalists from GeekWire, a crew from Como News, even someone from CNBC who had flown in overnight following the publication of the Reed family drama. Cameras clicked as I walked out in jeans and a simple sweater, carrying only a clear plastic bag with my approved belongings. My parents were in the front, with Chase holding white roses, faces arranged in relief for the lenses. My mother stepped forward first, arms open. She said, "Honey, we are so happy you are back." I kept walking, passing within an arm's length without slowing down or looking her in the eye. The roses remained extended, untouched. A sleek black sedan glided up to the curb. The back door opened. Carter Brooks emerged, 34 years old, Harvard Law, known for dismantling corporate fraud cases and never losing a boardroom battle. He had refused Chase's attempts to hire him 3 times in the last 2 years. He said, loud enough for the nearby microphones to catch, "Ms. Reed, your carriage awaits." I slid into the back seat. The interior smelled of new leather and a subtle fragrance. The door closed with a muffled thud that blocked out the sudden barrage of questions. Through the tinted glass, I watched the scene shift. The reporters turned away from my family and swarmed the car, shouting about who picked me up and what this meant for Reed Cloud Systems stock. My mother's arms dropped to her sides. My father's jaw worked silently. Chase fixed his pocket square as if remembering he was on camera. Carter took the driver's seat, insisting on driving himself that day. He said the penthouse was ready and the team was waiting. I leaned back against the headrest, feeling the smooth acceleration pull us away from the curb. I told him to take the long way. I wanted to see the city again. The car merged into traffic. Behind us, my former family stood surrounded by cameras, the photo op of reconciliation crumbling in real time. I didn't look back for long. The soft light of Seattle filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse. Overlooking Elliott Bay, I walked into the apartment that had been prepped and stocked weeks prior, the door clicking behind me with a sense of finality that echoed in my chest. The air smelled of cleanliness, lemon furniture polish, and fresh linens, nothing like the stale concrete I had breathed for 3 years. I left the small plastic bag with my prison belongings on the marble counter and went straight to the bathroom. The shower had 6 heads, rain and handheld, all glass and chrome. I turned the water up as hot as I could stand and stood under it for hours, or at least it seemed that way, scrubbing my skin with cedar-scented soap until it was raw. The steam rose thick, carrying with it the smell of institutional disinfectant that clung to my hair and pores. I watched the gray water swirl down the drain and wondered if the rage could be washed away that easily. You can scrub off the prison dirt, but the betrayal? That's tattooed on the soul. It sits under the skin, itching, reminding you that trusting the wrong people is a sentence that lasts longer than 3 years. When I finally stepped out, wrapped in a thick white robe, Carter Brooks and Vivian Stone were waiting for me in the living room. A mahogany table was organized with stacks of documents, 2 open laptops, and a pot of coffee still steaming. Vivian, 61, silver hair, sharp as a tack, a former federal prosecutor turned corporate attorney, stood up when I entered. Carter remained seated, sliding something onto the screen. Vivian welcomed me back with a firm, professional voice. She said we had a lot to sort out. I poured coffee into a real ceramic mug, the first in years, and sat across from them. The liquid was dark, full-bodied, nothing like the weak swill in prison. It burned my tongue in a good way. Carter slid the first folder toward me. It was the revocation of the emergency power of attorney. My brother had filed the request, alleging mental incompetence. We contested it for fraud and lack of medical evidence. My signature would immediately reactivate my status as majority shareholder. I signed without hesitation. The pen felt strange in my hand, too smooth, too expensive. Vivian placed the second document in front of me. Emergency request for forensic audit and temporary asset freeze. It was going to the King County Superior Court that afternoon. It would prevent any transfer of company funds until the audit was concluded. I signed that too. Then came the resistance. Carter's phone vibrated. He answered, listened, and frowned. First National Bank was pushing back. They claimed the existing hold Chase placed was valid and wanted 24 hours to review conflicting orders. Vivian's eyes narrowed. She said they would have 4 hours. She told Carter to file an ex parte motion now. She said Judge Ramirez owed her a favor from the Meridia case. While Carter typed frantically, Vivian opened her briefcase and took out a small black flash drive. Unlabeled, just a letter M written in blue ink on the side. She whispered that this was the backup copy. The original was destroyed, wiped from a server in Bellevue over 17 months ago. Our forensic team took all that time to reconstruct fragments from external backups and deleted email chains. She said it was all there. Internal communications, offshore transfers, shell companies registered in Delaware, enough to show a systematic embezzlement of resources. I took the drive. It was lighter than I expected. 3 years of someone's meticulous work reduced to 8 grams of plastic and silicon. Carter ended the call. Motion filed, hearing in 2 hours. The bank would comply or face contempt charges. I plugged the USB into the secure laptop they had provided. Files opened in organized folders, spreadsheets with dates and values, email chains between Chase and unknown accounts, invoices for services that never existed, millions siphoned off slowly, carefully over the years. My stomach turned, not from shock, but from the precision of it. This wasn't impulse. It was planning. My phone, the new one Carter handed me in the car, vibrated with notifications, social media tags, news alerts. I ignored them. Across town at the Washington State Convention Center, the annual Northwest Tech Summit was in full swing. 800 attendees in the main hall, live streaming to thousands more. Chase was on stage, blue suit, in the middle of a presentation about the new enterprise security suite from Reed Cloud Systems. The slide behind him showed growth projections I had never authorized. He gestured with confidence to announce the partnership with Pacific Data Systems, a $50 million deal that would be the company's biggest yet. The audience applauded as he invited the CEO to the stage for the ceremonial signing. Chase pulled out the company black card to pay for the celebratory champagne brought by a waiter. The portable terminal beeped. Declined. He laughed, attributing it to an error, and tried again. Second beep. Declined. The third attempt generated murmurs in the front row. His personal phone vibrated against his thigh. He stepped away to answer, still smiling for the cameras. The voice on the line was from First National Compliance. Mr. Reed, all corporate accounts have been frozen by court order, effective immediately. No transactions until further notice. The color drained from his face under the stage lights. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Someone in the back started recording with their phone. The CEO of Pacific Data stopped, expression cautious. Chase tried to spin it, joking about technical difficulties, but the momentum was broken. Partners exchanged glances. Investors checked their phones. In minutes, the Reed Cloud crisis was trending locally. Back at the penthouse, I closed the laptop. The coffee had gone cold. Vivian gathered the papers. She said the freeze affected personal accounts linked to company funds, too. Credit cards, lines of credit, everything. I nodded. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something close to control. Carter stood up. He said we would monitor the reactions. Tomorrow, if necessary, we would go public. I walked to the window. Below, the lights of West Seattle twinkled in the distance, like little fairies. My city, my company, my life, starting to come back, piece by piece, carefully. The flash drive sat on the table like a small black bomb, waiting for the right moment. Morning light filtered through the penthouse windows when Chase's phone started vibrating incessantly on his nightstand. He picked it up, blinking slowly, squinting at the screen. 47 missed calls. Messages from his assistant, board members, investors, all marked urgent. The first message from the executive assistant said, "Call immediately. Medical records leaked." He opened the link she sent. A digital document from Swedish Medical Center dated 3 weeks before the accident. Diagnosis: spontaneous miscarriage due to prolonged work-related stress. No mention of trauma. Harper's signature was on the discharge papers acknowledging the loss. His stomach dropped. He scrolled further down. The file had been included as evidence in the emergency audit motion filed yesterday, which had been obtained by TechCrunch and the Seattle Times overnight. The headlines were already live. Reed Cloud Systems CEO's wife lost pregnancy before alleged crash. Questions rise over founder's wrongful conviction. Chase threw the covers off and stormed toward the kitchen, where Harper was pouring coffee. She turned, smiling initially, but froze when she saw his expression. "Is it true?" He shoved the phone in her face. Harper looked at the screen and set the mug down carefully. "Chase, answer me. Did you lose the baby before the accident?" She crossed her arms. "Yes." He felt the room tilt. "And you let me?" He took a deep breath. "You let us all testify that Morgan caused it." Harper's voice remained calm. "You wanted her out of the way. The company was slipping from your control. I saw an opportunity." "An opportunity?" His scream echoed off the high ceilings. "You sent my sister to prison for 3 years for a lie." "Our lie," she corrected coldly. "You believed it because you wanted to. You needed her gone to take control." He paced the marble floor, hands raking through his hair. "The board meeting is urgent today. Investors are pulling proposals. The deal with Pacific Data is dead." Harper picked up her coffee cup again. "Then fix it. Deny everything. Say the records are fake." "They aren't fake. They're from Swedish. Your doctor. Your signature." He stopped in front of her. "How could you look me in the eye every day knowing that?" "Because you never asked," she replied simply. You were too busy celebrating your new title. The silence stretched heavy between them. Outside, a news helicopter chopped at the air, circling the Bellevue neighborhood. Chase's phone rang again, his father's name on the screen. He ignored it. You aren't the victim here, Harper continued. We both wanted the same thing. I just made it happen. He stared at her, really seeing the calculation behind the beautiful face he had married. Get out. What? Pack your things. I want you gone by tonight. Harper laughed bitterly. With what money? Your accounts are frozen too, remember? He had no answer for that. Across the water, in downtown Seattle, the lobby of Reed Cloud Systems buzzed with unusual energy. Employees whispered in clusters. Security had doubled at the doors. I walked into the executive conference room, where a small press scrum awaited me. 3 cameras, half a dozen reporters from local outlets, and Bloomberg. Vivian had advised keeping it short and factual, no emotions. I approached the podium in a simple black blazer, hair tied back. Flashes went off. Thank you for coming on such short notice, I began, voice steady. As majority shareholder and founder of Reed Cloud Systems, I am announcing an independent forensic audit of all company finances, effective immediately. This audit will be conducted by an external firm, with full cooperation from authorities if necessary. Questions erupted instantly. Ms. Reed, what about the medical records released last night? Is this related to your brother's management? Will criminal charges be considered? I raised a hand. Documents have surfaced raising serious questions about the events that led to my wrongful conviction. The truth will emerge through the proper channels. Until then, I am resuming my role as chairwoman. My focus is protecting this company and the thousands of employees who depend on it. A reporter insisted. Do you believe your family deliberately framed you? I looked directly into the camera lens. The evidence will speak for itself. Justice has a way of showing up, eventually. I walked away from the podium after exactly 8 minutes. No further questions. Vivian ushered the press out. In the hallway, Carter handed me fresh printouts. Social media mentions had exploded. The stock had dropped 12% at opening, but stabilized after my announcement. The board wanted an emergency vote on leadership transition, he said. Let them, I replied. We'll be ready. Back at the penthouse that night, I stood at the window, watching the lights reflect on the water. My phone showed 23 missed calls from my mother. I didn't answer. The lies were unraveling faster than they were woven, and for the first time, I wasn't the one paying the price. There's a strange peace in watching karma finally clock in for its shift. I spent 1,000 nights wishing for revenge, but watching them destroy themselves? That was justice. Afternoon traffic hummed through the tree-lined streets of Bellevue as 2 moving trucks and an official sheriff's SUV arrived at the gates of the immense estate overlooking Lake Washington. I stepped out of the black Escalade with Carter Brooks by my side, the eviction order firm in his hand. The house, 6 bedrooms, infinity pool, home theater, was in my name from before my parents moved in 20 years ago. A prime asset the court recognized without dispute. The gates opened electronically. My parents, Chase, and Harper were out front, bags already packed at their feet. My mother clutched a small jewelry case. My father carried a hanger with a single suit. Chase's face was blotchy from lack of sleep. Harper kept her eyes on the ground. The officer read the order aloud. Immediate vacation of the property. Personal clothing and hygiene items only. Furniture and objects acquired with company funds were to remain. My mother was the first to break. She dropped the jewelry case and ran toward me, arms open. Baby, please. Her role in initiating the false accusation earned her 5 years of probation and a permanent criminal record. Chase fought with everything he had. His defense claimed it was all just an aggressive but legal business strategy. The jury didn't buy that version. Convicted on all counts. 10 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole for 7 years, plus restitution of $12 million, the amount traced directly to his schemes. I sat in the front row every day of the sentencing. My mother wept loudly when his name was called. My father stared straight ahead, face immobile. Harper didn't look at anyone. When it was Chase's turn, the judge read the charges: embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit perjury in the wrongful conviction of Morgan Reed. Chase finally turned to me as the bailiff approached him with the cuffs. His mouth formed my name, but no sound came out. I met his gaze without wavering. The confusion, the anger, the plea, it was all there. But so was mine. 3 years lost, a company nearly destroyed, trust broken beyond repair. They led him away last. The courtroom doors closed with a heavy finality. Outside, the reporters waited, but I left through a side exit with Vivian. The Seattle rain had started again, light and steady. In the car, she asked if I wanted to make a statement. No, I replied. The verdict speaks for itself. I watched the courthouse disappear in the rearview mirror. Mixed emotions swirled inside me. Relief, emptiness, something close to mourning for the family that didn't exist anymore. But above all, resolution. The lies had their day. The truth finally had its turn. A year later, I sat in the visitation room of the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, the scratched plexiglass between us dulled by countless conversations. Chase looked different. Orange jumpsuit hanging on a frame that had lost weight, hair shaved, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. He picked up the phone on his side, his wrist bare without the heavy watch I saw in family photos. I lifted my receiver. He spoke first, voice hoarse. Thanks for coming. I didn't think you would. I stayed silent, waiting. I know apologies don't fix anything, he continued, but I had time to think. A lot of time. He paused, searching my face through the glass. Mom and Dad, they ask about you in every letter. They want to know if you're okay. I kept my expression neutral. Chase leaned closer. The company is okay. I read the quarterly reports the prison library gets. Mason is doing really well as CEO. I nodded once. He swallowed hard. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to see you, to say this to your face. Finally I spoke, voice low and steady. There is no forgiveness. Not for you, not for Mom or Dad. The blood tie was cut, legally, emotionally, and completely. I changed my name on all documents months ago. You are strangers now. His face twitched, but he didn't look away. I transferred total ownership and control of Reed Cloud Systems to Mason. I continued. He's the only one who chose what was right instead of what was easy, ethics instead of family pressure. He earned it. Chase's knuckles turned white on the phone. I deserve this. Yes, I replied. You do. The silence stretched between us, filled only by distant voices in other booths. When the guard signaled the end of the visit, Chase pressed his palm against the glass. If one day... I hung up without waiting for the rest. Walking out into the dry air of eastern Washington, I felt the weight I had carried for 4 years shift. Not disappear, but change. Lighter, maybe. 3 years stolen. Youth that wouldn't return. The stress of prison had left marks. Doctors confirmed I would likely never carry a child now. The trauma was too deep, in the body and the mind. Trust in blood family destroyed beyond repair. But refusing forgiveness isn't weakness. It's protection. It is choosing to keep what remains of yourself rather than handing it over to be broken again. Greed can hollow out a family from the inside, turning love into leverage and loyalty into a liability. It starts small, resentment over shares, whispers about inheritance, and grows until people justify anything to get what they think they deserve. True loyalty isn't automatic with DNA, it's chosen. Mason proved that, risking everything to stand for what was true when it cost him the most. I drove west toward Seattle, the Cascades rising in the distance. The company prospers under new leadership. I consult when needed, but mostly I build something smaller. Mine. Alone. Some losses are permanent. Some choices define us forever. But survival, true survival, means deciding who stays in your life and who doesn't, and living with that decision without apology.